Greetings and welcome to the Halloween edition of the Sliders Review. Alright, let's address the elephant in the room. I know it's not Halloween. Alright, that's long past. But when it came to my Halloween videos, I ran out of time and I couldn't upload everything I wanted to. So that's why I'm uploading them past Halloween. But if you stop and look at it like this, at some point in time, it's gonna be Halloween time again, October. So somebody eventually will stumble upon my videos and watch it around Halloween time. So yeah, and I'm here today to talk to you about Goosebumps, Deep Trouble. This is a really good episode. It's a two-parter. Not an hour special, but a two-parter. Normally, you can always tell if it's an hour special because one, it will come on late at night. Two, it will be an hour. Three, R.L. Stine will open the show with an intro and end it. So he doesn't do it here. It's just a two-parter. Hour specials are normally scarier, and also two-parters are also a bit scarier. This one is very, very, very creepy and stuff. And it's classic R.L. Stine from head to toe. It's the brother and sister duel. It's the brother and sister having to go live with a relative over the summer. It's the brother and sister not wanting to live with the relative over the summer. It's them in a exotic location. The person they're staying with has a laboratory. There's a freaky monsters left and right. And I mean, oh boy, there's a lot of monsters up in this episode and stuff. And it's the brother and sister, one pranking the other at one point and stuff like that, and them bickering and arguing. Even their last names is classic R.L. Stine. The main cast last name is Deep, which is funny because the episode is called Deep Trouble. They're in trouble, but it's also a play on underwater, being in trouble with sea creatures. The monsters of this episode are primarily sea creatures and stuff. However, there's a couple of land crawling creatures like a giant tarantula, a snake, and some type of lizard type thing. When I say this episode is creepy, my God, put yourself in these people's shoes. You will be terrified when you see these monsters. The CGI doesn't really hold up to the day. You gotta remember it was the 90s, but they did a pretty good job for being the 90s. The costume department, they outdid themselves this episode. Those were some great costumes. Some really great costumes and stuff. And one thing I want to point out is something I never noticed really when watching Goosebumps back in the day is the lack of diversity in it. There aren't that many people of color in Goosebumps. In fact, there aren't even that many people in The Haunting Now, which is another R.L. Stine show. And there's either she's Hispanic or indigenous. Her name is Janet in this episode, and she's the maid, and she's barely in it. And I've noticed something. Whenever there is a person of color, mostly black, or they rarely show up in like Goosebumps. And when they do, it's like for a hot minute. There's only been 2 episodes that focused on black characters. And both of them are like mixed with black and white, a light complexion. Whenever the darker people come into Goosebumps, they're barely in like an episode, I've noticed. It's like really jacked up. I mean, there's only been 3 Asian people in Goosebumps. One had a really big role. One and the other 2 had like minor roles, and it's just kind of like, why? Like, I don't get that, But then again, it's Canada. So, and it's also part of, it's North Hollywood. But, other countries are like that too. Ireland is like that. America used to be like that. And so did like England and stuff, or Britain, or what do you call it. And, and it was the 90s, and I've talked about stuff like that before, about, like representation and diversity. It just sucks, man. Hopefully, like one day in Canada, they can improve that. Because even in the Haunting Hour, that came out about like a decade and a half, they have a lack of diversity. Even when they brought in like American stars and stuff, and it's just like really uncanny when you like notice that now and stuff. But anyways, this deals with a brother and sister duo named Sheena and Billy Deep. Now, Sheena, she's played by one of my favorites, boy, Laura Vanderwalt. If you don't know who she is, she was Supergirl in Smallville. This is like one of her second like goosebump episodes. She's in another. The other one isn't as scary, it's more silly. But this one, boy, it's really interesting seeing her back in the day as like a teenager. Like she looks for the most part the same, but she's older now. She's like a grown woman now. You know, her voice sounds like a grown woman. And she was Supergirl, man. She was the second live action Supergirl back like 20 something years ago in Smallville. Boy, it just like I just can't believe it, you know what I'm saying? And she was playing Sheena in this episode. Her character, see, she calls herself Sheena of the Jungle as kind of like to give herself some courage. Why? Because of the movie Sheena of the Jungle and the TV series Sheena. I've never seen the movie, but I've seen a couple of episodes of the TV from about a decade and a half ago. And it starred Gina Nolan from Baywatch in that. There are two episodes I like the most in that show. So I'll probably talk about that one day. But I've never seen the entire show in its entirety. It's not that it was terrible, it just I wanted more action and stuff. And there wasn't much of none. I got tired of hearing people talk. That really bugs me. Like there's a show that's pretty good, really good, called Shadow Hunters. It's like really good, but there's like lack of no action, and it just bugs me because it's one of those type of shows that's kind of like Buffy and has it, you know. Anyway, so she's out on like a little like raft type thing, and she's out in like the ocean near the beach shore. And next thing you know, here comes a shark coming towards her. Scares the piss out of her. But what is it really? It's her brother Billy with a remote control shark. And so she's pissed about that. And so as they're walking along the beach, they're upset because like they don't want to be at their uncle's place. He never really has time for them. There's since they're so far out, there's like no good radio stations, no cable TV, no internet, no nothing over there. So they're bored out their minds. And so like as they're walking back, they find a giant shark tooth. And I mean a giant shark tooth. It's the size of a person's head. Now they know there's no way that could be possible. So they go to their uncle Howard. And so, cause he's a scientist and maybe he can figure out what it is. So when they're back into like his house and everything, his beach house, they go down in his laboratory, which they're not supposed to be in. He has literally told them stay out his laboratory, but they're hard-headed teenagers, so they go anyway. And so as they go, they overhear his voice and Jake Ritter's voice, his assistant. So they hide and they hear those two arguing. Basically, they created something in Uncle Howard, I'll call him that for now. He doesn't want to continue with the experiments, but Ritter does. In a way, they leave. As the kids about to leave, man, the coolest thing happened. There was like a giant blowfish type thing. And I mean, it was giant. It was like the size of like a grill you grill on, probably. And next thing you know, it starts puffing up. And then it starts shooting spikes at the kids. Talk about horrifying, man. That was awesome. That thing was just shooting spikes left and right. And the kids are like terrified. So then they run out. And then they close the door. And then spikes just start shooting at the door. They can't believe it. I couldn't believe it. It was awesome and everything. And it's like, what caused this thing to be that huge? And, it tried to literally kill them. Well, of course, the uncle finds out and he's pissed that they went down there. So he basically grounds them. And 'cause when he finds, they show him the shark too, he tells them plain and simple, do not go to the beach. They're pissed because they're all like, well, heck, they're on a beach. There's nothing but beach. So what are they supposed to do? He tells them he don't care what they do, just don't go to the beach and stay out the lab. So now they're bored out their minds outside playing goldfish. Do you remember playing that back in the day? I know I do. One of the easiest games to play. That and war. War was so easy. And I declare war. And I felt bad for them, because they're teenagers. They're hanging with their relative on the summer, the entire summer. They got absolutely nothing to do. People love going to the beach, but they can't even go to that. And it sucks, man. Like I would be furious. And so the maid Janet lady, she's pissed because somebody ate chocolate cake that she had baked and everything. And she gets pissed at the teens. She thinks they did it. They all like they haven't even had no cake. So they don't know what the world she's talking about. So she's all like, I'm gonna tell your uncle. She's really mean and really rude. And so Billy's all like, screw this, I'm heading to the beach. And Sheena's all like, we're not supposed to go. And he's like, I don't care. I'm a teen. I'm gonna have myself some fun. So he heads on out to the beach, and next thing you know, he finds a man laying on like the shore and stuff. So him and his uncle bring the man in, but he doesn't get in trouble for going to the beach. The man is delirious and he keeps saying a few phrases. And so Ritter's all like, did he say anything? With a weird, creepy look on his face. So now you know who's probably the bad guy of this episode, because Ritter's acting very shady. And then so the man repeats some stuff. And like, so he said he came from like an island. And so Ritter and Uncle Howard gonna go back to the island and see if they can find more people there. But, you know, Sheena and Billy are like, you can't just leave us here and everything. So he, for whatever reason, takes them with him. I'm like, that's dumb. They could get hurt. And so he tells the maid, look after the dude. And so she goes over, she looks at him with a creepy look on her face. Then she calls like 911. She's like, oh, it's not convenient. The phone is dead, with a very disturbing look on her face, like she's up to something. She looked like she could care less. So in a way, they go out to like the beach. And Billy and Sheena, of course, they run off, and the uncle has to go after them. He tells them to come back. As soon as that happens, you will not believe what happened. Ritter hopped back in the boat, so all like, see ya. Uncle Howard is like, he's all like, what are you doing, man? You can't just leave us stranded here. He's all like, look, man, we can make a lot of money off this invention we created and stuff, but you're having too much of a conscience and all this other crap, and I can't have that, so see ya. He leaves them stranded on like a shore, a small little island and stuff. And so I'm just like, dude, what the world? And so that's the first part. And then the second part, this is where all the horror stuff comes in. So as they're looking on the shore, looking for something they can salvage, like they find a wrecked boat. And so like they're looking for the raft boat and stuff. But then eventually they do find another boat. It's somewhat intact. But they have to go looking for Billy because he's wandered off. Well, Sheena and Uncle Howard, they encounter a giant lizard. And this thing is literally like, it's huge. It's the size of a mountain. It's as tall as a mountain. It's like, holy crap. Like, what the heck kind of experiments were they running and stuff? So, like, He tells her, first they're creeping and tiptoeing, and then he's like, run. So then they find like some type of abandoned cabin, and he tells them like lizards have bad eyesight, but they can sense the tiniest vibration. This is why they run off when they see people and stuff. But this one ain't running off, he's running towards them to eat them and stuff. And so he's all like, be very quiet and stuff. Well, if they can sense vibration, why did they run like crazy? So that don't make no sense. So she's asking, how could this thing happen, be this big? And he tells them, he experimented with something. He calls it D15, and basically it makes creatures grow and stuff. And so, like, he said he was gonna end world hunger by making giant, like, livestock and fishes and stuff so people can eat to end like world hunger and crap. But he said some of it spilt out into the ocean and it must have made its way to like the island and stuff. So anyways, they're like running, and so they're running now through not even really the woods. It's kind of the woods but kind of not, but I guess you could call it the woods. And so like by this time, Billy has been grabbed by something with a green hand. He drops his watch and they find it. So they're looking for him. And then all of a sudden, something, when they're in that cabin, something grabs Uncle Howard's leg and drags him underground. Being terrified and scared and alone, Sheena grabs a stick and she's all like, I'm Sheena of the jungle, I'm Sheena of the jungle. She just like jumps in the hole and everything. And now she's in a cave. And while she's in the cave, she is now being pursued by a giant tarantula on one side, a giant snake is coming after her. Man, this is, you know a snake will get your behind. Especially if it's giant size and stuff. Oh, also they saw a crab on the beach. It looked gross. So at some point in time, she finds Billy because Uncle Howard's being dragged away by some people in robes and cloaks. And so she finds Billy. Billy is dirty. His clothes are ripped. He's all like, we gotta get out of here. And she's like, no, and everything, Uncle Howard. Now it's funny because Uncle Howard's all like, we gotta leave Billy here and get to the back to my house. And she's like, you can't leave Billy. That's my brother. Anyway, she finds some dude and he's in a cloak. And he rescues them from, I think, the tarantula or the snake or the crab or something. He rescues them from a giant animal. And when he reveals himself, he's like a squid boy. And his makeup and prosthetics is awesome. Basically, he tells them that Ritter hired him as like an assistant and gave him an extra $100 to run experiments on him, the D15, talking about it'll make him stronger. But it turned him into a sea creature. And so she's all like, there's some people who grabbed my uncle and stuff. And he's all like, oh yeah, they're gonna kill him because they blame him for creating this stuff. But she's all like, but my uncle didn't experiment with nobody. They all like, well, he tried to tell them that, but they won't listen to him. So they go and, they spy on like the sea creatures, and the makeup prosthetics is amazing once again. So when they find like, the sea mutant people and stuff like that, they try to explain, Uncle's innocent and Ritter, blah, blah, blah. And so at some point, they believe her, which is funny because they didn't believe the squid boy. They didn't believe Uncle Howard when he told them, but they believe Sheena for whatever reason. So they're like, let's get Ritter. So we see Ritter and he's back at the house and he's loading up his car. And all of a sudden he starts to see the D13 compound on footprints and stuff near like the house. So he gets scared, runs out to the beach and hops in the boat. But then the sea mutants come after him and they scare the piss out of him. Now what's weird is, why didn't he just hop in the car and drive off? I mean, why would he go on a boat and back in the ocean and he knows the sea mutant people can swim? And it's just one of those things. So anyways, it cuts from that and we see now the entire family back at the house, and we see a bunch of people, and we see the squid boy who's now human. He's all like, that's the last of the antidote. And so like, all the sea mutant people are back human now. And so they wonder what happened to Ritter. Well, it cuts to that to a circus, and we see a woman talking about see the fish man and everything. It's Janet, the maid. Like what the word? What the word? And now we see Ritter in a tank. He's half man, half fish. I don't know what the sea mutant people did. They must have made him drink the D13 or something. This was like a really cool, freaky episode. Like it really like leveled up in the second part. But the first part is pretty cool, but you get to understand what's going on with the situation. But yeah, in the second part, it really leveled up. Now it is different from the book slightly. Instead of turning into sea mutant people, they just turn into regular fish. And so, but here I like it better because they're like monster looking things, And at the end of the book, it's actually Sheena who drinks some tea, but realizes it had D13 in it. And she starts to turn into a fish. I think that would have been a cool ending, like, oh crap, I drank the stuff. But it was even cooler knowing that they got revenge on Ritter and made him drink the stuff instead. Now, wasn't that spooky? Alright, well, I shall talk to y'all later. Bye.